Breaking news. Ukraine is fighting back against a massive Russian cyber war on its power grid. It's Monday, January 27, 2026. And you need to understand, Russia's aggression, it's evolved. This isn't just about hacking computers anymore. This is about weaponizing winter. It's about targeting the global food supply and synchronizing digital viruses with physical missiles. If you really want to understand the future of warfare, where code can actually kill, you need to listen closely. But first, if you support the defense of democracy and you want the truth from the front lines, subscribe to Defense Reports. It's your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Aria in the latest podcast by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today, we are covering the unprecedented scale of what's being called the First World Cyber War.
It's good to be here. And honestly, cyber war as a term, it almost feels inadequate now. We're looking at official data from the SBU, that's the Security Service of Ukraine, and it shows they've neutralized over 14,000 cyber attacks just since the full-scale invasion began.
14,000. I mean, that number is just staggering. But numbers can feel a little abstract, So today we are going to unpack what that actually looks like. We're talking about so-called wiper malware targeting the grain corridor. We're also going to discuss the terrifying reality of how hackers are using soldiers' own mobile phones to guide artillery strikes.
And we absolutely have to talk about the Kyivstar hack, the story of how Russian spies were just sitting inside Ukraine's biggest telecom network for months, silently watching before they decided to pull the kill switch.
Plus, we'll get into the cyber force. This is Ukraine's historic move to create a brand new branch of its military, one dedicated solely to digital warfare.
And the hunt forward strategy. That's how the U.S. and Ukraine basically turned a defensive cyber war into a kind of global vaccine against Russian malware.
Okay, so let's start with just the sheer volume. You mentioned that number 14,000 neutralized attacks. Is that sort of spread out, or is this ramping up?
Oh, it's absolutely accelerating. If you look at the data for just 2025, the year we just finished, the SBU repelled over 3,000 hostile operations.
3,000 in 1 year.
Which averages out to about 8 significant attacks every single day. And, it's important to clarify what we mean by an attack.
Right, because I think a lot of people just picture a website going down or, I don't know, a Twitter account getting hacked.
No, these are not nuisance hacks. These are operations by what we call OPTs, Advanced Persistent Threats.
So state-sponsored groups.
Exactly. These are military units hiding as hackers, and their targets have shifted dramatically. Early in the war, it was all about energy. They wanted to turn the lights off. Now they're going after the economy.
The sources mention a big shift toward the grain sector. That seems so specific. Why grain?
It's pure economic warfare. A major cybersecurity firm, ESET, put out reports detailing how Russian APT groups, specifically a very notorious group called Sandworm, have been deploying data-wiping malware against companies involved in grain logistics.
And the timing on that wasn't random, I'm guessing?
Not at all. The attacks spiked in June and September.
Harvest time.
Critical months for harvesting and shipping. If you hit the logistics, then you're not just annoying a company, you are trying to paralyze Ukraine's main source of revenue.
So if they can't blockade the Black Sea with ships because of the naval drones, they'll try to blockade it digitally.
That's exactly it. And the tool they're using it's terrifying. You have to understand, it's not ransomware. Ransomware locks your data and asks for money. Criminals use that.
And these guys?
These guys use wipers, a string called Patty Wiper specifically. It doesn't lock your data, it just burns it. It overwrites everything with zeros. It is pure destruction. If you wipe the database of a grain terminal, nobody knows whose grain is where or where the ships are supposed to go.
So the grain just sits there and rots.
It rots. It's an attempt to weaken the war economy and threaten global food security all at once.
That distinction, wiper versus ransomware, that really clarifies the intent. This isn't theft, it's just sabotage. You mentioned Sandworm. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but they seem to be the main players. Who are we dealing with?
You can really break the Russian cyber threats into two main groups. First, you have GRU-linked. They're linked to the FSB, Russia's security service. Think of them as the spies. High volume, constant phishing, trying to steal documents, battle plans. They want to know things.
Okay, so GRU is espionage. And Sandworm?
Sandworm is the sledgehammer. They're GRU Russian military intelligence. They're the ones causing the blackouts. They're the ones deploying those wipers. Well, GRU wants to steal your files. Sandworm wants to destroy your whole operating system and shut down your city.
Well, speaking of shutting things down, we have to talk about the Kyivstar incident.
Yeah.
Because looking at the timeline on this, it wasn't a glitch. This was a catastrophe.
It was a digital scorched earth operation. I mean, for context, Kyivstar is Ukraine's largest telecom operator. And in December 2023, they just went dark. 24 million people disconnected instantly.
24 million. That's about half the country suddenly unable to make a call, check the news.
Call an ambulance. And it affected air raid alert systems in some areas. It also hit the psychological well-being of soldiers on the front lines who suddenly couldn't call their families. But the truly scary part wasn't the outage itself. It was the infiltration.
The SBU report said they were inside for a long time.
They were inside the Kyivstar system as early as May of 2023.
Wait a second. They breached the system in May, but didn't do anything until December. That's, what, 6-7 months? Why would they wait?
That's the nature of an APT. They were lurking, mapping the network architecture, escalating their privileges, learning how all the backups work. If they had attacked back in May, maybe they'd knock out service for a few hours. By waiting, by burrowing that deep, when they finally struck in December, they destroyed the core of the operator. They wiped everything. It was designed to make recovery take weeks, not hours.
That level of patience is just chilling. It means they're watching everything, just waiting for the moment it will hurt the most. And doing it in winter. Hitting communications in the grid in winter has to be a deliberate choice.
It is. And this connects to a concept that I think really defines this war. Cyberkinetic operations.
Okay, unpack that for us. Cyberkinetic.
Well, we tend to think of cyber war and physical war as two separate things, right? Russia has merged them. A cyberkinetic operation is when a digital attack is synchronized with a physical missile strike to maximize the damage.
With a 1-2 punch.
Precisely. So imagine this. Hackers use malware, something like in Destroyer 2, to trip the circuit breakers at a power substation. The power goes out. So now the lights are out, the automated safety systems are offline. It's chaos.
And that's when the missiles fly.
Yes. While the grid is down and emergency crews are scrambling, that's when the physical missiles strike the same infrastructure. You blind the defender, then you hit them.
It's a force multiplier for the missiles.
And we saw this with an attack on Lviv Tel-Tlenergo. That's a utility that provides central heating. They disrupted it right in the middle of winter. The goal is to freeze civilians. It's using code to weaponize the weather.
It just drives home that this isn't a virtual war.
Yeah.
The consequences are completely physical. You freeze or you starve. And nowhere is that danger clearer than on the front lines.
Yeah.
This part of the report, I mean, the idea of a soldier's phone being a weapon against them.
The front line has changed. It's what analysts call sensor-rich. Every single soldier has a phone. Every unit has a tablet. And the GRU knows this. They see every one of those devices as a potential beacon.
So how are they getting in? Is it just like hacking the cell towers?
It's much more personal than that. They are actively capturing devices from soldiers, or they're penetrating signal and telegram accounts. And they're using specialized malware like a toolkit called Infamous Chisel.
Infamous Chisel. What does that do?
It's malware designed for Android devices. The GRU loads it onto captured phones or tries to push it out remotely. It then scans all the files, looking specifically for any information related to Starlink terminals. It wants to know where the internet uplink is for that unit.
So it's spy in your pocket.
And it is lethal. We have a specific tragic example from November 2023 with the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade. There was a missile strike that caused significant casualties, and the investigation traced the leak back to the penetration of a soldier's signal account.
So a hack on a messaging app gave the coordinates for a missile strike.
Yes. A digital breach led directly to physical death. It completely changes how you have to think about operational security. A phone isn't just a way to call home anymore. It's a tracking device that can get your whole unit killed.
It all sounds so overwhelming. The economy, the grid, soldiers' phones, and this is the crucial part. Ukraine is still standing. The lights are on in Kyiv right now.
Yeah.
The grain is moving. So the defense must be working. Let's talk about this cyber shield.
Right. Ukraine realized very early on they couldn't fight this alone. Cyber warfare is incredibly expensive. You need constant software updates, huge server capacity, expensive hardware, and that's where the Tallinn mechanism comes in.
Named after the capital of Estonia, a big cyber player.
Correct. It's a coalition of over 13 nations, the US, UK, Denmark, Estonia, others. They realized that for Ukraine to survive, its civilian infrastructure had to hold, so they're funding it. They just committed another 60.9 million euros for 2025, bringing the total to over 241 million.
And this money is strictly for defense.
Primarily for civilian cyber defense. It's to keep the hospitals online, the internet working, the energy grid managed. It basically pays for the hardware and the software licenses that cost a fortune.
Now, what about the U.S. involvement? We hear about U.S. Cyber Command and these hunt-forward operations. Is that just advisors in a room in Washington?
No, it's much more active. Hunt Forward teams are U.S. cyber specialists who are sitting side by side with Ukrainian defenders in Ukraine. But you have to understand, this isn't just charity, it's a symbiotic relationship. It benefits the U.S. and Europe just as much.
How so?
Well, think about it. Ukraine is the world's testing ground right now for Russia's most advanced cyber weapons. So when a U.S. team finds a new piece of Russian malware on a server in Kyiv, they take its digital fingerprints.
And they share them globally.
Instantly, they share those fingerprints with banks in London, hospitals in New York, government servers in Tokyo. Because they found it and neutralized it in Kyiv first, they can patch systems in the West before the virus even arrives.
That is a fascinating way to look at it. Ukraine is basically the immune system for the democratic world.
That's it. Ukraine's defense becomes the world's vaccine. By fighting the malware there, they stop it from spreading to the rest of the NATO alliance.
And I see here they're also running something called TriSub. That's Ukrainian for Trident, right?
Yes. TriSub is a joint training service. U.S. and Ukrainian experts train defenders against red teams.
Okay.
These are basically simulated Russian hackers mimicking the exact tactics of Sandworm and Gamaredon. They're drilling these scenarios over and over so that when the real attack comes, the response is just muscle memory.
Okay, so they're blocking punches, but at some point, you have to throw one back. Is Ukraine just taking the hits, or are they going on the offensive?
Oh, they are absolutely throwing them back. The idea that Ukraine is just a victim in this space it's outdated. The SBU has been very clear about this. They are conducting what they call proactive operations.
Can you give us an example?
Well, remember that Kyivstar hack we talked about?
Of course.
The retaliation was swift. SBU-linked hackers hit back at Moscow's M9 Telecom. They breached their system, deleted data, and disrupted their services. They are now actively targeting the Russian military-industrial complex and its supply chains digitally.
An eye for an eye.
Precisely. Using the same tools to disrupt the adversary's ability to wage war.
It feels like this is all leading to a permanent change in how their military is structured. I'm seeing reports here about a cyber force. Not just a unit, but a whole new branch of the military.
We're literally watching history being made. In October 2025, a bill passed its first reading to establish a cyber force as a separate branch of the armed forces of Ukraine.
So it'll sit right alongside the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force.
Exactly, with its own command structure. But what's really innovative is how they're solving the personnel problem. They're creating a cyber reserve.
What's the thinking there?
Well, imagine you're a top-tier cybersecurity expert at a private tech company. You make good money, you have a very specific skill set, you don't want to be a soldier in a trench, and frankly, the military shouldn't want your brain in a trench.
Right. Handing a rifle to a master coder is a total waste of resources.
The Cyber Reserve lets these civilian experts be mobilized for digital defense without making them full-time soldiers. They don't have to live in a barracks. They can fight the war from behind a keyboard.
That just makes so much sense. It lets them tap into that private sector talent pool.
And it aligns Ukraine with NATO standards. Honestly, it's a model that a lot of other countries are watching very, very closely.
So, to sort of bring it all together, where we are today in January 2026, Ukraine has endured the first full-scale world cyber war. They've faced blackouts, data wipers on their food supply, lethal hacks on the front line.
And yet, the grid hasn't collapsed. The government is still online. The key takeaway really is resilience. Through manual overrides, quick recovery, and this massive international support, they have prevented that wholesale collapse Russia was aiming for.
It's an incredible story of adaptation. They're literally writing the textbook on modern warfare as it happens.
They are. But there's one final thing to consider. A provocative thought for everyone listening to mull over. The SBU isn't just deleting all this malware, they're preserving it.
Preserving it? Why would you keep dangerous code?
They're gathering forensic evidence. They are building a legal case to take to the International Criminal Court, the ICC.
You mean, for war crimes?
Exactly. They are building the legal argument that targeting civilian heating and power in the dead of winter with code is a war crime. Just like bombing a hospital or a school, they want to set a legal precedent, one where the people who write the malicious code are held just as accountable as the people who fire the missiles.
Wow. So we could actually see a future where programmers are standing trial at The Hague.
That is the goal, to strip away the anonymity of cyber warfare and make it a punishable crime against humanity.
That is a massive thought to leave us with. The invisible front could lead to a very visible courtroom. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
Thanks for listening.
And don't forget, subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.